What's important is to say, I am getting hurt first. Don't run away from it. So if I say to you, you shouldn't get hurt. That's like, say if you've got a broken arm and I said, you shouldn't have a broken arm. It's like, you're thinking, I've got a broken arm. And like, if you're hurt, you're hurt. So you don't say to somebody that you shouldn't be hurt. What would be a better way to word it is to say that, do you know that Guru wants to take us beyond hurt? And it's good to recognize that we're not there yet. What is it that's hurting? And we can start having that conversation. Actually, what's hurting is what I'm identifying with. The only thing that can hurt is the I am. Anything hurts. It's the ego, but don't take that in a negative way. It's to understand how the mind works. How dare they attack that identity of mine? But actually, our identity is just something like a costume I wear to provide a certain service. We want to get to the place of where it's like, well, that's not even me. What's important is to say, I am getting hurt first. Don't run away from it. It's really important because it'll keep coming back. It'll keep coming back. And we'll be in this denial. So a lot of goddesses end up in that situation because they start saying things like, well, we should be there, shouldn't we? We shouldn't be getting hurt. And we won't even tell somebody then I feel hurt because we think, well, Nindia's not supposed to affect me. So then we won't tell somebody. What a mess. Welcome to the Japji Sahib Podcast. In this episode, we'll be looking at the 7th stanza, the 7th Pauri. And we'll be exploring and looking at the question that, is it possible for us to do something on our side where we can become more virtuous? And Guru Nanak Dev Ji will be helping us to understand what it is, or is it possible for us to be doing something on our side, to be filled with more virtues and divine qualities. So before we get started, let's say Fateh to Preetcharan Singh, who will be joining us during this episode. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So let's start off with the first line, the first Pankti, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying, Je Jug Chaare Aarja or the Suni Hoye. And here, if we just read out the literal translations first, what Guru Sahib Ji is saying, that if one could live throughout the 4 ages, or even 10 times more. And what's being said here is that there are certain yogic practices that yogis would do and carry out where they'd be able to remain in their body for extended periods of time. So there's certain breath practices that they could do. And so it's almost like a conversation here that is happening between a yogi and Guru Nanak Dev Ji. But for us, the best way to look at it is, because we can often get caught up in just looking at that conversation and then we forget to apply it to ourselves and to relate to it. The most important thing is here for us to be able to make it relatable for ourselves. And so here, Je Jug Chaare. Chaare is obviously the 4, the Jug referring to the ages. And so the 4 ages, which is Satyug, you know the rest?
Treta, Dwapar, and where we are right now, Kaljug.
Yeah, there we go. So we've got the Treta, and so starting with Satyug, then Treta, then Dwapar, and then Kaljug. And then Guru Sahib Ji is saying here that even if somebody was to live for as long as 4 ages, he said, never mind that, then Hor, the Suni Hoye. The Suni means to times it, and if it was to times it by 10. And some people will get into the actual technicalities of working out and calculating exactly how long that would potentially be, looking at the ages of the 4 ages. And you will find that in some places. You'll be able to look in certain steeks where you can actually have a look and see where all of that is broken down. And I'm pretty sure Baba Gurbachan Singh has done that. Sant Baba Hari Singh Randhawe Wale, they've done that in their app as well. So, but here, that's not what we're going to be focusing on. It's not about being technical here to try and understand the exact period of time. But what Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying is basically, okay, even if you used to live that long, and yeah, that's the point here. And I know we often try and there's many people that want to try and live as long as they can, which is fine. You know, we should be trying to live a healthy life and try to look after this temple, because Guru Sahib definitely calls it a temple, where Guru Sahib Ji say to us, and let's see what pankti are you bringing up.
I was thinking this one.
Let's Har Mandir Ho Sareer. Yeah, perfect. So that's the pankti that I was going to say, that where Maharaj say Har Mandir Ho Sareer hai, that this actual body itself is a temple for that one. And then Guru Sahib Ji go on to say that Gyan Ratan Paragat Hoye, that Ratan, that jewel of self-realization, Gyan, can only come and Pargatan, and we can have that experience, which is the highest kind of experience that one can reach, which is that self-realization, is only through this human body. And that's why the Guru has called it a Harida Mandir. And where, because even though God is in everything, but it's only through this body that God, that one can be actually realized. So it's definitely important, so we know the mission of our life is not to try and live long, but the actual understanding the potential is self-realization. And the healthier this body, the more we look after this body, the more we can get closer to that potential.
And when you say health, it's not just physical health.
Oh, no.
That's right.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't clarify that, but physical and mental health. Yeah. So it's so important to look after that. Jug Chaare Aarja, Hord Suni Hoye. And then, so Guru Sahib goes on to, what Guru Sahib is saying here is that, all right, then, say if you do that, say if you manage to, through certain breath practices, taking your breath up to a certain region, and you're able to extend your life, because there were yogis that did that. And Maharaj says, all right, great, you've done that. Now you lived that long. And then they go on to say that Navaa Khanda vich janiye. Navaa here means 9. And Khanda, the word Khand itself, if we break that word down, what the word Khand means, Preacher, are you aware of what the word Khand, the actual literal meaning of it is?
Is it a piece?
Perfect. Yeah. You're smashing it, bro.
I spent too much time with you. That's what it is.
So Khand literally just means a piece, right? So once we've got the word piece, then we can further kind of translate it to other things. Here it's saying Navaa Khanda. Khanda is here pieces that the world is divided into, right? So referring to the continents. Here it's saying the division being 9 different kind of, we could just look at it as the 9 different regions of the world. Easiest way to look at it. Yeah, again, I know some people, they get so technical, they're looking at, oh, but isn't it 7 continents now? But isn't the world divided in a lot more kind of smaller pieces? That's not the point here. The point is just like if you're known throughout the world. And I say that because I've actually had people say that to me in the past. Yeah, but I was like, no, we're missing the point. Like it's just an example of saying like that's not what Guru Sahib is trying to get us to focus on. We sometimes get so caught up on the trivialist of things and get so technical. And it reminds me of a Pangati actually, where Maharaji says that Gante Prabhu na paiye duje parmita. When you get into all of these like menatiyan, these like you start to kind of like count and get all technical about God in that way, and like this is Prabhu, you're not going to get to God in that way. Okay, so if we get back to Navaa Khanda Vijjaniye, this is referring to now, remember, like if a yogi has extended his life to that extent of, 4 ages times by 10, and because now that yogi becomes known for having lived so long, that yogi becomes known in all the 9 regions of the world, and then Guru Sahib Ji says, Naal challa sab koe. What that means is then everybody actually comes to follow you, and then they start to think, oh my God, this guy is just amazing. I can't believe he's been in this body for that long. So let's make that relatable. Do you know anybody at present that has lived in their body for tens of thousands of years?
No.
Not very relatable, is it, for us today? Right? But it's actually very relatable in one sense for us today because of how small the world has become through social media. So if we look at social media now, this is actually something that is quite possible for somebody to reach that level of fame where they do get known throughout the whole world. Let's stop saying 9 regions. I just don't want to throw people off, right? We're talking about throughout the whole world. Yeah. And that's quite achievable nowadays, isn't it? Through social media. And some people, they've made that into the mission of their life. And where it's all about how much can we grow on social media? How many followers have we got now? Look, when we look at that, there's a few things to consider here. There's having that intent of that pure intent, which is again in some of the other granths, which I think it's mentioned in Sar Kutavali as well, which is one of the first steps of the Sat Bhumika, the 7 stages being Shubh Ichha, and having that pure intent. So somebody's pure intent might be that the only reason we want to grow so much is because of the work that we are doing, the message that we are providing, the education that we are providing is going to go on to help so many human beings. So it's going to touch so much of humanity in a way that it needs to touch them, to help them because of what they are going through at this moment. That's Shubh Ichha. But we know that this line is so fine. We often talk about Guru Amar Das Ji talking about this line being fine, but Bhai Gurdas Ji talk about it as well. Bhai Gurdas Ji say that Gur Sikhi bareek hai and sil chattan fikki tikhi khande taar hai oh wal ho nikki. So you got it, great. So here Bhai Gurdas Ji actually says in this pauri, saying that Gur Sikhi bareek hai, that this path of when you surrender yourself to the Guru, that path is actually a very subtle path. It's a very fine path, that is, to walk on. Because we know we could start off and we could start saying that, my intent is pure, but you find yourself now hanging on to you getting you only feel good, or you only feel happy now when you are growing on social media. Now you're in trouble. Now that starts to become your reason for actually being okay in life, not realizing that now what you've gotten used to doing is chasing pleasure. Now you're chasing the pleasure of these likes, just like that yogi might have fallen into that trap of people chasing him, the whole world thinking, following him, the whole world saying that, oh wow, look how great you are, Changa, Naao Rakhaae. That he's got this such a great name about him as well. And Jas Keett Jagle means that the whole world is praising you. And it's a fine line, isn't it? And it's so easy to fall into that trap. You find yourself feeling low and sad. I think it was one of the pages that I've got. I was looking at it and I was thinking, oh, actually, so there's been a lot of followers that have been unfollowing as well. And you forget to sometimes, you don't notice that until you go into your insights and you start looking at these things. It's like, oh my God, all right. People are unfollowing what I'm doing. And you've got to be aware, is it getting to me? And if it is, then has that become what I'm reliant on now? to even feel somewhat okay, have I kind of not realized that now I'm in this pursuit of like growing my social media, and then there's this dopamine kind of dripping, and whilst I'm in the pursuit, and then every time I see that growth, then there's that there's that pleasure that I experience. Have I become unaware of this? Am I falling asleep? Like Guru Amar Das Ji say in their Bani that say that Sutya Rain Vihani. So look, Guru Sahib Ji saying here that Tehi Guni Sansar Param Sutta, but it's actually just another a play of those tre gun that we get this eluded in, and then we fall asleep. And Sutya Rain Vihani, and we end up passing this whole life asleep. So in that moment, I had to really like look at myself and think like, actually this is affecting me, and that's okay. I need to be aware of that and not run away from that. And now I need to know that it's something I need to deal with. Yeah. So this is what this body is about, how it can become relatable to us today. But it doesn't mean you have to run away from these platforms, but it means that are we able to remain aware of what is happening to us whilst we are on these platforms? Are we able to remind ourselves of the goal of why we are on these platforms? If we want to grow on them, why? We've got to constantly go back to that question, why? So otherwise, Guru Sahib Ji saying, Changa Naao Rakhaae Ka. Like, you could be known, you could have this great name about yourself, and just Keett Jug Le, where the whole world is praising you. And we know that Guru Sahib Ji says to us about praise and how it can be it can work against us spiritually, and how it can grow our arrogance, grow our ego, embed our ego deeper into us. Certain identities, they become deeper and deeper. We fall deeper into the illusion. So like there's studies now where I think they've probably been around for a while. If we look at studies around growth mindset, it says that you should always praise somebody's effort. And even if we look at that, the Guru goes further. That's what does it mean to have Guru's mat? Guru goes further in saying that, all right, like I'm going to do the effort, but you're going to give me the strength to do the effort. Got the Pangati? Yeah, perfect. And I don't know, like this Pangati is more related to around seeing and having darshan of sadhus and doing sangat of sadhus. But if we just take the concept of the first part of the Pangati, the first part of the line, which is Uddam Karon Karav Ho Thakur. And it's so, look at Guru Sahib Ji using grammar here, and that's an example of Guru Sahib Ji using grammar here perfectly, where Guru Sahib Ji is saying Uddam Karon. So the Karon is first person. So Ura Ankar is first person, saying so that, okay, I'm making the effort, but look at this. This is beautiful. This is how it's the Guru that takes away ego from us. Because even if we then get entangled and become identified with that, look, like, yeah, well, I made the effort, didn't I? There's still ego there, isn't there? But here, Guru doesn't leave room for ego. The Guru says that Karav Ho Thakur. And then it's saying that you are the one, Karav Ho. Like Karav Ho means that you are the one that allows me to put that effort in. Like, look how amazing that is. And that is actually like, there's just no room left for ego. And that's why we always say that literally like half a Pangati can turn your whole life around.
What's that Pangati, Viji, that like, whether I'm slandered or like if I'm slandered, then that's mine. That's my
Je log salah hai,
yeah,
ta teri upama, je ninde ta chhod na jai. So Guru Ram Das Ji here, saying to us that je log salah hai. And are we able to do this? Are we got to ask ourselves the question, are we able to do this? If we're not, that's okay, because that's the first step, isn't it? When you're putting your hands up. And if you look at the pattern of Gurbani, like I don't want to keep now going back and forth to multiple पंक्तियां because, and you know, because so let's just focus on this for a moment.
हाँ जी.
जे लोक सलाह है, जो कोई साडी सलाहना करता है, if somebody's praising us, why am I saying this is perfect? Watch how this fits in now with the seventh body. ਤਾਂ ਤੇਰੀ ਉਪਮਾ, that it's actually your upama, it's your praise, it's how. Nanak Nirgun Gun Kare. And I know we've missed a few pankti and we are definitely going to cover them just to show the link here. This is the body we're going through, the seventh body of Japji Sahib, just to let the Sangat know. Look at this link now. Guru Sahib Ji saying to us here that Nanak Nirgun Gun Kare, like saying that if somebody is virtueless, that if somebody hasn't got any virtues, for example, they don't experience love, they don't experience compassion in their life, they don't experience these, you know, gun of forgiveness and prem. So Guru Sahib Ji said it's God that gives them those virtues. Yeah. And then it says that gunavanteyan gun de. That, and then don't think that the people that have got the virtues, that they just produced them themselves to say, yeah, I'm going to make up some love. I can do it myself. Yeah. And it's my own production. It's my own thing that I've designed, right? There's no such thing. Yeah. Like you can't say, yeah, I'm going to make up this quality. I'm going to make it. There's no such thing. Yeah, it's gunavante gunade. Like even those that have got virtues, they've come from God. Yeah. And so that's why now what Guru Ram Das is saying is the truth. Je log salah hai. Somebody is now praising me for my actual qualities, for my virtues. Like, they're actually not mine, are they? Because if you look at this now, it's not me that's made compassion. I can't own it. I can't stamp it to say, yeah, that's me. I've made that. And here you go, preacher, and I'll give you some of what I've made. It already exists. It's actually something that we resist, that we are. We are naturally that. All it is that we end up resisting it. Yeah? So how do you can we do something? We can stop resisting. How do we resist? We resist through opposing someone, hating someone. We resist through wanting to, you know, take revenge. We resist through speaking down at somebody. If we was just to stop doing that and go back to our natural state, and we're in love. We're in compassion, we're in forgiveness. It's not something like, I don't know, man, how am I going to bring myself to forgive you? Like that doesn't exist. In that sense, like when you're in there, it's just happening, it's just natural, it just is. And that's what God is. Je ninde ta chhod na jai. And if somebody slanders me, then I'm not going to let go of you. Right? Because first of all, if somebody, let's say that somebody's saying something about us that isn't true, yeah, we might have to take some practical steps because it might not be convenient for that to be happening. Okay. And in some instances, especially if somebody's like known and famous and it's, you know, it's such a, and you're followed by hundreds of thousands of people, for example, and there's a few people saying a few things, and sometimes you don't take any action necessarily, and it's just, but there's certain times we will have to. But what it's saying here is that I don't let go of you. Meaning that just because somebody's slandering me now, I don't let go of love. I don't let go of compassion. If I do, then I'm letting go of you. So if I was to hear that preacher has said something about me and it's not true, Yeah. And it's just completely exaggerated. And if I now take that and I get so caught up in it and I let go of being loving now, remember what we're saying here, I still might need to take practical steps of putting you right. And that might not be possible because you might not be willing to listen. Sorry that I've used you in this negative
That's
kind of.
okay.
I should have used it the other way around.
No, not.
And
It's fine.
but we're gonna go with it now. I don't want to confuse the
Just go with it.
Yeah. But it might not be that I could do. I can put it kind of. I take practical steps to speak to you about it because you might not be willing to listen. So I might have to take other steps where I might need to let other people know that this isn't actually the truth or whatever, because it could be very damaging. Not just to me, generally to, people, other people that are linked with me or anyone else. But this isn't what's being said here. This is what people confuse it. This is where so many people confuse it. I don't know, how sometimes, it doesn't matter how many times you say it, but people still end up thinking that if you're saying that you don't let go of your gun of love or whatever, people think you become inactive. It's so hard for people to get that, for that concept to click. And not realizing you could literally be active and not let go of love.
It's about your intention, isn't it?
Of course.
So if you have an intention to propagate the truth, if the false, if something is being said that's wrong and that's hurtful, it's the way you approach that. And Guru Ramdas Ji said, it just reminds me, and this comes up in Hukamnamas quite a lot, doesn't it? That Jai Koi Nind Kare Harjan Ki Apna Gun Na Gawave. That you are, so first of all, Guru Ramdas Ji, same Guru, talking about Nindya here.
Is this in the same Shabad?
It's not. It's a different Shabad. But the Harjan, so the person that is attached and holding on to Waheguru, they don't let go of the qualities given to them, no matter what's happening. But that's not to say that they don't respond with the qualities that they have, like
Absolutely.
love, truth,
Yes.
courage, compassion, strength, because it's not just the soft qualities.
So here, what we're saying is, let's just to clarify that the intent isn't that, oh my God, I need to protect my name or whatever. The intent is that, those are the practical steps that need taking. But the intent is still that I'm not letting go of that pyar, right? And so it's like we've got to do something on a practical level. Great, that's fine. But it's asking that question, why? And I know, you mentioned the word hurt. What Guru is saying, Guru wants to take us beyond hurt, because then it's good to identify that I've got hurt, then we can work on it. Because when we do get hurt, what that is saying is that there's still a strong identification. There's still a strong hold on an element of ego of what I am. And because it's only the ego that hurts in that situation. Yeah. And Guru wants to take us even beyond that, but most of us aren't. So that's what we've got to be real to that. So what happens is, I know many Guru Sikhs, they will say, you shouldn't feel like that. But that's like saying to someone, if I said to someone, so if I say to you, you shouldn't get hurt. That's like, say if you've got a broken arm and I said, you shouldn't have a broken arm. It's like, you're thinking, I've got a broken arm. Yeah, if you're hurt, you're hurt. So you don't say to somebody that you shouldn't be hurt. What would be a better way to word it is to say that, do you know that Guru wants to take us beyond hurt? And it's good to recognize that we're not there yet. Yeah. And that, what is it that's hurting? And we can start having that conversation. Actually, what's hurting is what I'm identifying with. The only thing that can hurt is the I am, the mine, mera, right? Like we said, if it's causing an issue because of what's being said, of now, people might, I might be providing a service to somebody, And now what somebody has heard about me isn't true, so they stop using that service, but they need it. And so those are the things, that's what we're trying to rectify externally. We're not trying to make my ego feel better. We're just trying to rectify something on a practical level. If anything hurts, it's the ego, but don't take that in a negative way. It's to understand how the mind works. So when we say that it's the ego that hurts, what we're saying is, let's try and understand how the mind works. Yeah. So if I'm so identified with that, oh, I'm a pracharak, I'm a religious educator, and then somebody starts to say something about that identity of mine, and I start to get so angry, and I start to get so upset and hurt that how dare they attack that identity of mine. But actually, identity is just something like a costume I wear to provide a certain service. And so I could just say, look, like we want to get to the place of where it's just like something, it's like, well, that's not even me. It's just that I have to kind of take on that role to do a certain service, provide a certain service. But it's important is to say, I am getting hurt first. Don't run away from it. It's really important because it'll keep coming back. It'll keep coming back. And we'll be in this denial. So a lot of goddesses end up in that situation because they start saying things like, well, we should be there, shouldn't we? We shouldn't be getting hurt. And then we almost have to, then we stop expressing to each other, and we won't even tell somebody then I feel hurt. Because we think, well, Nindia's not supposed to affect me. So then we won't tell somebody. What a mess.
It's as crazy as, your broken arm example and pretending that your arm's not broken, but your body's trying to tell you that something's not right, so you can do something about it.
Yeah, of course.
So when something's hurting you with regards to your emotions, then it's in the same way kind of saying to you, hello, that, you need to work on that.
Yes.
And until we realize that, we're sitting inside, your home at the moment, and you could take that, it's a beautiful analogy. I've heard that, like, you're inside your home and it's like someone's chucking rocks at your house and you're like, ouch, that hurts. Yeah. But actually, when you realize that you're not the house, you're the person inside it, then until you realize that, then it will hurt because you think you're the house. And the rocks are hitting, but then you totally realize then that, okay, I need to work on that. I'm not the house. Why is that hurting? And then you can move forward. And but for the people that are being praised around the world, I think that's where we were originally speaking on, wasn't it?
Yeah. But this is what's amazing about podcast style. Even though yes, we're translating Gurbani, but some of the conversations that can come out of, like when we start to go deeper and explore, those are the things that will really help people, because then those examples become very real. And in all of that, we're not saying that what somebody's doing is okay. So let's go back then. I love this pankti as well. It's a definite pankti, like, I'll try and again save it and remember it. Jai koi nind kare har jan ki apna gun na gavave. So if we go back now to Changa Naao Rakhaae ka jas kirat jug le. So there we go. We've got a great name. People are praising. And now Guru Sahib hits a bombshell. Like, here you go. Ala. Je tis nadar na aave ta vaat na puchha ke. So Guru Sahib ji says, well, all right, and what? Like, and then saying Jait is another Naave, saying that if we just read out, like, the way we've worded this translation, Guru Sahib is saying that, see, well, if the one does not bless you with the glance of grace, then it's like nobody's asking about you. And what that's saying here is that, in this world when nobody asks about you and you feel all alone, and it's like, well, my God, like, in that same way, what Guru Sahib is saying is that The whole world could be following you, praising you. But if you haven't come into God's glance, then literally it's the same as like the whole world blanking you. That's what it's like in the world of God. Yeah, you've been blanked. Yeah. And then they go on to give further examples. It could be that even Guru Sahib Ji saying that Keettaa Andar Keett Kar dosi dos tare, that actually in the eyes of God it's almost like it's like this. It's that Keettaa Andar Keett, that even like amongst worms you're just considered just a worm, like, oh yeah, another worm, all right, whatever. And you think you're this big shot. You know, you've got all this fame, you've got all these followers, but yeah, just another worm amongst worms. And even dosi dos tare. So here, dosh is the sin, and then doshi is the noun, which is the sinner, saying that. So even like, you know, when you say if you're chilling amongst like other people that are criminals and have done all sorts of crazy things in their life, and they're saying, Guru Sahib, you it's almost like that, where there's a sinner turning around and saying, well, that, like, we're all right, man, he's the sinner. Yeah. And so that's the extent Guru Sahib has gone to try and like really get us to understand this. And then it comes back to what we was talking about before here, where Guru Sahib is saying that Nanak Nirgun Gun Kare, Gunavantya Gun De. Like we said, Guru Sahib here is now talking about Guna qualities, these divine qualities. And what that is saying is then that what it is that brings us into that one's glance is when we are in the experience of that love and compassion. And when we are in the experience of those qualities is what is bringing us in the glance of that one. So for example, somebody might be famous, but they might have forgotten that pyar, that love inside of them. They've started to look down on people, start to feel that they're above others. That's not going to get you Waheguru's glance. That's actually, you've walked away from Waheguru. Remember, that is the resistance of Waheguru. That is the resistance of that one. And so this is what this is saying here. So we explained the Pankti before, and we'll just say it once more, that Nirgun Gun Kare, that if somebody hasn't got any of these divine qualities, they come from Waheguru, is basically what's being said here. And whoever's got them, it comes from Waheguru. Yeah. And so what can we do to get them? We start becoming aware. And sometimes, and I will say from my own reflection, it's not necessarily just one thing that will set it off for you. Like, we've got to remember that these qualities are our core. Like, love and compassion, that's our core. Yeah. And how do we get there? It can happen in different ways. Yeah. So for example, I might start doing sangat with you, but there's something about you, for example, that allows me to stop resisting that love that is already inside of me. So I could be doing sangat of you, like, so I'm in your company, and because you've already are in touch with those qualities, so the ones that already got the guna here, gunavantya, so you're the gunavanta here, you've got the qualities, and then because you've already got them in you, what that allows me to do is, whilst I'm doing sangat of you, I'm open and I'm not closed to your sangat. And what happens is that where I was in this resistance, I was so deeply like identified with a certain identity about myself that actually, like, it just allowed me to let go of it and experience love inside of me. And that's when people end up saying to somebody, oh, I really love you. But they don't really know what's just happened. What's actually happened is that something about them has allowed them to experience love. So it's not now just that, oh, I love you. That actually doesn't make sense. But we, because of the programming, we end up just saying that. We're so used to saying that. But what would be more accurate is like saying, wow, thank you. Like there was something that Waheguru has blessed you with that has allowed me to experience the same, that has allowed me to go to. So instead, it's an actual moment of gratitude.
How did you open yourself to that?
How do you open yourself to that?
Because you said you were open to it.
I would say there's because of certain life experiences, certain people will become more closed in their life. And if we are closed, like quite closed within ourselves to being open to receiving like grace or seeing somebody's qualities, sometimes we have to have that conversation with ourselves. It always comes back to awareness, and something or someone has to bring that to our awareness. And sometimes it happens without the awareness, like and I know I've just contradicted myself, but I'll explain what I'm saying. Sometimes you don't know, you're not aware of what you've just done to become more open. So I could be completely like coming to your company and I don't even know what's happened, where I've just kind of just let go and I've surrendered. And I've been able to experience that. Or then I would say this is happening more and more now in today's age, where now we're exposed to so much wisdom, but still it's still not going in. Sometimes we have to become conscious about something. So I might have to have the conversation with myself that, you know what, Breachers coming today, and I do an ardas even. I can do an ardas and say like that, let me be more open to his qualities. And so that I can somehow let him take me there. And I go with this kind of, it's not magic that I'm now going I go in a state of surrender because I've got so many like programming of so many years of just being like that. But I've started the conversation with myself, to say that it's okay. Just start letting go and just see what you can receive. Yeah. You thought of a bhakti.
Yeah, it was just you've said it yourself. It's your vichar, but it's Guruji's vichar, but ek tere nahi panna kale.
Yeah.
That you just said through ardas, you might be struggling, you might have so much garam, you might feel like, how can I do that? But no efforts unlooked.
Yes, of course. So I think if we was to start, wrapping it up with looking at the last pankti, the final pankti in this body, where Guru Sahib Ji is saying that Tehaa Koe Na Sujhe-ee, Tis Nadar Kare. And some of these panktiyan, they're open to interpretation. So you will see them interpreted in different ways. Like we can never do dawa of an interpretation. Dawa means like to say like for sure this is the only way. But just from reading other, Gurmukhs, scholars, Mahapurkhs, and from self-contemplation, kind of we've tried to understand it in this way. And where we're saying that Tehaa Koe Na Sujhe-ee, like we can't, like there is no one that can be found other than the one that can give virtues. And we've already gone through that because at that point we can very easily start claiming. I can be very tempted in that moment for my ego to kick in and say, see, preacher, and it was because of me. You started to now feel love more. Yeah, but I can't own that virtue. I can't. But the ego will try so hard. Yeah. And even say if there was a spark that something initiated it for you to go to that place through what you may have seen. Yeah. Or like say if you've seen something in me and now you've got that quality, but even that quality that you've experienced within me is God's quality. But the ego is so like desperate to try and like, what's the word when you're trying to, claim something? The ego will try and claim it. And the ego is going to try and claim it now, saying,
Dibs.
Preacher, I gave you that, so you're indebted to me for the rest of your life.
Yeah, of course.
That doesn't mean we don't appreciate each other. But
Yeah.
ultimately, God, Guru Sahib is taking us beyond that. Don't start thinking that it's anybody else's. They got it from Waheguru. Gunamantya Gunade. They've got it from Waheguru. Yeah. You didn't have it and you've got it from Waheguru. Isn't that crazy? Like, we read these words every day, but what you can get out of them, it's like, wow. Like, mind-blowing. Like, what? I've been trying to contemplate this Bani for like 12 years now. No, like 13 years. But every time when we do Sangat, and when it's a discussion like this, it just gives you something new. There's certain things that we've come to discover now in this conversation. I've never heard it in that way before. And that's the kirpa of discussion. Well, I don't even call it discussion. Like I call it, we're just doing Sangat. And it's Sangat that we need more of. But we got to be doing Sangat of the Guru Shabad. Yeah. So hopefully there's so much we can take away from that body. Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to share before we say Fateh?
Just to wrap up what you've said is that people chase good health and fame and to be well known, but what we are looking to chase for is the Nadar, the vision and the grace of the one. And it just reminds me of a video that you made at the reservoir a few years ago on grace and how do you receive grace from Waheguruji. Some people might ask that question, and we have covered it in this video about realizing that any gift you have belongs to the one. But if any viewer does want to know a bit more about that, they can watch that video too. I'll leave a link in the description.
I think, like, if we used to look at it, like, if we used to give like a practical, like, if we had to draw this, like, and make a little art out of it or a diagram out of it, I can visualize it like this. Imagine like this God's eyes, and I know it's not like that. Like, just before anybody starts thinking, why are you humanizing God? Like, it's just an analogy. Yeah. So imagine there's God's eyes there looking at you, right? But that God's vision like just sits in this area. And then how do I know I'm not in it is like, so if I'm sat there and I'm not in it, that means that I'm caught up in my ego in some form of arrogance or something. Yeah. And just for me to be aware of that wait there, like, I'm looking down at somebody here. I'm starting to think I'm better than someone. From that alone, I know I'm not in there. So what I need to do is I need to jump out of that box and then where I'm going to land is in God's Nadar. Yeah, in God's glance. When I get out of that, and when I just start to see that, we're all actually We're all actually one. I'm not better than anybody else. Yeah. And then we've kind of jumped out of that box into the box of Nadar.
And it's not because you want qualities or something like that. It's because that is the hukam of Vaheguruji, that's what will give you the sukh, eternal sukh. It's not fame. That's temporary. That will eventually turn into some form of poison for you.
Yeah.
Being in that box of Vaheguruji's glance is an eternal peace that we're all, you said it in a previous podcast, we're all going towards that direction.
And if we're then in Vaheguru's glance and we're famous, then we're going to be a very good famous person. You can only but do, wonders for the world then. You're only going to be spreading love then. Okay, so Sangaji, thank you for joining us, listening to the 7th stanza of Japji Sahib, and continue with us on this journey. We'll be now, the next episode, we'll be exploring the Sunya Podiyan, the stanza of listening. So, see you then. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Please donate and help spread Guruji's message. Link is in the description below. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.